Hey everybody, welcome back from your Thanksgiving holiday. Hopefully you had an opportunity to take a break, a little bit of a rest, and you had an opportunity to eat some really good food like I did. Let's not feel guilty about it. We celebrate it. You got to go through these days of feasting and enjoying company of those that you love and some friends and family. I certainly did that. And now we're rolling from Thanksgiving all the way through now to Christmas. And I've been really thinking the last week or two about how we finished this last series of the restoration of our soul. And I ended our 12th week in that series with this truth that the people with the most joy in life are the ones that seem to have the most authentic, loving relationships, that they've been able to cultivate quality relationships. And so I don't want to just move past that. What I've learned over the last 10 years, and really specifically the last 6 years, is that most people really don't understand and value or even understand how to value the relationships in their life, and also how to navigate. Sometimes there's difficult relationships, and sometimes we got to walk away and set up some boundaries for those relationships so that we can open ourselves up to new relationships, those that are edifying and giving. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time today on that, and then we're going to have an opportunity to kind of talk about it as a group. So I want to begin with this phrase that probably many of you said if you went to school in the United States. It was called the Pledge of Allegiance, and in that Pledge of Allegiance are these words: one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, what you may or may not understand is that the United States of America was founded on the principle that human beings have certain rights because their value comes from God. It's called inalienable rights. And that's what this is saying: one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me break that down to just get you to understand why this is important. Because I ended the last series and I began the last series saying it's all about value. It's all about, do you value yourself? Do you understand your value, your worth to God? So, indivisible, what does that mean? Well, what divides us? What divides us is we fight over what's valuable. The majority of fights happen because someone devalued you, or your perception was that they devalued you and you got offended, or they got offended, and that tends to break the relationship. So when we are divided, we are not operating in our value and our worth. Well, what about with liberty? What is liberty? Well, liberty is freedom, and the opposite of that is captivity or imprisonment. Someone that has been held as a slave or in jail does not feel valued. When they become released and they now have freedom back, they have liberty again, they feel that they have an intrinsic value. So there's another value. And justice for all. Why? Because in our country, we need justice because that person's life is valuable. It's not just disposable. We need justice. If someone wronged you, your life, what happened to you matters. You have intrinsic value. This is what it's all built on. And this is why I want to kind of talk about this and how do we do this? In fact, the question is, well, what is the value of a human life? Like, how much money would you give, right, for life? Well, I did a little bit of homework, and the largest civil suit ever awarded to someone, this man had been, as a boy, had been set ablaze by this evil man, and he got burned. And later on, and I think it was in 2011, a jury handed down an award, you ready, for his life. He's still alive, but he has his life was obviously severely hurt by this. $150 billion. $150 billion. So a jury obviously thought, well, $150 billion is about as close as we can come to try to make you whole. What about you? Do you think your value is $150 billion? Now, I'm not saying there's a price tag on you, but that's a big number, right? I think most of us would agree there's no amount of money that you can really place on a human life. We do the best we can in some of these cases, but this just goes to the point of you have great value. And so this idea of a people, the church under God, indivisible, united, surrender to God and united together, that we are better together. And so relationships matter. They are rich and they are part of our purpose living in this life. Let me read a couple scripture verses. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor, right? When two people are working together, it's much easier to get things done than by yourself. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. Ah, the beauty of having a friend, having someone to be by your side. The early disciples understood this. Jesus modeled it. This is the model of the church that we use in today's society. Us is the difference. And I'm going to read you one more. Acts chapter 4, verse 32. This is when the disciples were all gathering together. It says, and the congregation, the people of God, of those who believed were of one heart and soul. And not one of them claimed that anything belonging to him was his own, but all things were common property to them. They shared, they were willing, they knew that their value came from God, their things came from God, and so they were willing to help and share everything they had with one another. See, joy is most often found in connection and not isolation. So if you go back to the Jewish nation, the nation of Israel, and God's walk with them, they had these things called the commandments. And many of you know the 10 commandments, which were kind of like set above all the other laws, that you had to keep these statutes, these laws, in order to be in God's grace. Well, you may not know there were actually 613 different commandments over the years that have been compiled based on the Torah that the Jewish people tried to follow. Can you imagine having to follow all these laws, 613 to a T? Well, when Jesus came, he said in John 13, 34 through 35, I am giving you a new commandment, just one, that you love one another just as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. See, Jesus knew the truth about true joy coming from authentic, loving relationships. And so the command that he gives us is not to harm us, but it is for our good. It is for love, peace, joy, and hope. See, the commands that God gives us are always good, but we rebel against God because we think we know what's best for ourselves. So I've talked about this in the previous weeks about this gift that you have been given by God called your will. And so you get to be an appraiser. You have the opportunity to spend certain things that God has given you this life on certain things or people. You get to determine the value of things. Well, I wanted to just remind you and ask you, well, what resources do you and I have that convey value to someone else? Well, I came up with 5 things, and this is universal to all of us. Number 1, and this is your most precious asset, is your time. How you spend your time matters. And so we need to look at it and look at how we're spending our time, because that is conveying value to the world around us. Second, your attention. Now you're like, well, isn't that the same as time? No, it's not, because my wife reminds me of this all the time. Oftentimes, she and I will sit at the table And I would say I'm spending my time sitting with her. But if the TV's on in the background and I'm secretly watching Gold Rush or watching a football game or something else, she would say, this time is meaningless to me because I don't have your attention. So you have the ability to show value to others by showing them your attention. Sometimes, guys, we just have to look at ourselves in the mirror and go, am I easily distracted? Am I not really showing the person in front of me the attention they deserve? It's something I had to learn and really allow God to show me over time. Number 3, I've mentioned this before, and we talked about redeeming our bodies. I've been given this physical body, and so I can use this body and give touch in a loving way to other people that are out there. This is something that for me, when I grew up, I was kind of a germaphobe. I say I come from a long line of worriers, and I was kind of worried about health and different things. And God had redeemed that in me and said, what are you worried about? Either I'm God and can protect you from things, or you're going to worry about these things the rest of your life. Well, for me, that was a big deal, because if I'm going to show love to someone who is dirty or homeless or has a sickness, and I have to pray over them, if I'm fearful about catching something or being dirty or getting their sickness, well, I'm not going to be a very good representative of God. And so I had to get that right and show that, no, this body that God has given me, He can protect. And this has truly been the story of my life, because I didn't worry at all about COVID. I still had to go out and be a pastor to people. And that I know of, I never really even got COVID. I didn't really get sick during that time. Well, I think God used me and protected me during that time. So you have a body that you can use for the proper touch to show love to other people. Number 4, we talked about this last week or the week before, your words. This thing you have called a tongue and these vocal cords, they are more powerful than you know. And you have the opportunity to bless people with your words. But I'm telling you, it has to be something you take before the Lord, because oftentimes as things are stirring in our heart and we need to deal with some stuff, some emotions or some thoughts that are not really pure, then our words aren't going to be pure. We won't feel like we want to bless other people. So you have your words to be able to speak life into other people. And then the last thing that I put down is your blessings or your resources, right? All of us have been given things. We have been given homes, food, money. There's lots of different things that we can share. We can use the resources that God has given us to go and show a blessing to others. This is really what we do at Christmas time, is we go out and we try to find that perfect gift to give to someone. Why? Because we're trying to convey value to them. But then the reason why we had to do that work, and we're continuing that work of restoration of our souls, is I'm sure many of you have received a gift that wasn't really what you wanted. I'm not talking recently, but maybe in the past or maybe recently. And you were kind of like, you didn't really react very well. Or you've given a gift to someone else and they didn't react very well, and it made you feel bad. See, we have to give out of a pure place in our heart. We have to give out of the generous heart that God wants to cultivate in us, to let go of trying to draw my value from things and appreciate the sentiment of the person that gave of themselves, gave of their resources for me. These are the 5 things that I want us to talk about today. I had a whole bunch of characteristics on what makes a great friend. I'm going to save that for next week, because I think you guys are going to have some really awesome time to discuss some of these things and maybe cultivate in your own heart as we move into the Christmas season, how to really show value to other people. Your time, your attention, your touch, your words, your blessings, and your resources. Maybe some of you can come up with some other things. Those are the 5 that I had. So I'm going to leave you to your conversations. And man, I hope that you're able to cultivate deeper relationships in these next 4 or 5 weeks with one another. God bless you.